Hey, thank you for being here. This is going to be different than most of the videos on my channel, and that's because after letting things sit for a few days after the events of this past week, I have some things that have been on my mind and heart that I want to share. Please understand that every word here comes right from my heart, even if it comes across with a little stiffness. I'm still getting used to reading off a teleprompter, but I wanted to write the things out to make sure I only say exactly what I want to say, or just to be as precise as possible with what I'm saying. I was more impacted by Charlie Kirk's assassination than I thought I would be. I was never really a Charlie Kirk ultra fan, but I could see the value in what he was doing, helping people think about the issues our society faces and helping young adults see the strongest arguments from the conservative side. I liked the times I saw him back up his arguments with data, and in a lot of cases, I agreed with his conclusions. From what I could tell, he held traditional views like the unique and complementary value of men and women, the sanctity of life, including life in the womb, and the importance of marriage and family. To me, he made a lot of sense. That isn't to say that I share all of the same views and beliefs as him, because I don't, but there's a fair bit of overlap. It was also nice to see a fellow Christian engaging with the arguments for and against God and Christianity. He was upfront about his faith. Theologically, though, I obviously have some differences with him. In fact, one of the videos that's been on my list for a long time is to critique his defense of Protestant Christian theology and try and demonstrate how Latter-day Saint theology would fit a lot better into his toolbox. His socio-political arguments were a lot stronger than his theological ones, in my opinion, and I think the doctrine in the Lord's Restored Church could have been a better partner to some of his non-religious arguments. At this point, though, I don't know when I'm going to do that. I think one reason his assassination has impacted me in such an unexpected way is because of all the commonality between us. I'm not a debater, I don't go visit college campuses, I don't enjoy the spotlight, and I get tired of the political merry-go-round, so in that way we're very different. But Charlie was a Christian family man in his 30s, with a wife and little children, and so am I. I prayed and cried for his family when I heard the news. Another reason last week's events have felt so heavy is that they happened in Utah, of all places. I don't live in Utah, but I have before. When Marnie and I got married, we lived in Orem, less than 10 minutes, I'd say maybe 5 minutes from UVU. And then we spent 4 years about 15 minutes south of there in Springville, Utah. Utah is known for its high population of Latter-day Saints and for its relative safety. It's just unthinkable to me that something like this could or would happen there. I also, like Charlie did, love the country I live in. I feel so incredibly blessed to live in the United States of America. I went to high school in the wake of 9/11, and I remember a special feeling of patriotism that came with the aftermath of that tragedy. I can also see how our nation has been so undeservingly blessed by the hand of God throughout its history. And some of my tears after the assassination last week were tears of mourning for what we've become. I was really feeling like we've hit rock bottom, especially hearing about the other violent events that also happened last week, and feeling like Charlie Kirk's assassination was just a sign that we've passed the point of no return, that things will never again be like they were. In that state of mind, I was unexpectedly touched by Governor Cox's remarks at the press conference when they announced that they'd caught the killer.
I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere. And every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. To my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes, because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency.
We are all children of God, and this event showed us just how far we've drifted from that truth as a people. Aside from the fact that this was an attack on the fundamental right of speech, there's also the horrible reality that someone thought killing a person with an opinion was an acceptable option. That we have some people who are cheering that it happened, others who refuse to accept that it wasn't a deep state conspiracy, and others who seem to sincerely believe that Charlie was a horrible person, but that he didn't deserve to die for it. There is so much confusion, and that's what leaps out to me every time I get on social media right now. But as I listened to Governor Cox share this hopeful message with the public, I found myself agreeing with it. This was a heinous, inexcusable crime, and it was an attack on the American experiment. But we do have a choice for how we want to carry things forward, especially the younger generations. Now, finally, I want to address what was obviously going to happen, and now is happening. That because this happened in Utah, by a Utahn, somewhere someone would imply that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and its teachings had some sort of impact on the killer's decision to do what he did. Just yesterday, I saw this article from the New York Post, and I decided to look through the comments to see how the response was. Would people pile on and agree with the insinuation in the title? I was actually happy to see so many commenters simply dismissing the insinuation altogether. Unfortunately, the few comments I did see agreeing with it were from ex-members saying that the church's teachings lend themselves well to resolving problems through violence. What? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints teaches people to resolve their problems through violence? How outrageous does that sound? Of course it's not true, because we believe in Jesus Christ, who taught to love God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies, pray for those who despitefully use you, agree with your enemy quickly while you're in the way with him, turn the other cheek, and on and on. Our prophet, President Russell M. Nelson, has been specifically preaching peacemaking for over a year now.
Jesus Christ declared that those who have the spirit of contention are not of him, but are of the devil, who is the father of contention. And the devil stirreth up the hearts of men to contend with anger one with another. Those who foster contention are taking a page out of Satan's playbook, whether they realize it or not. How we treat each other really matters. How we speak to and about others, at home, at church, at work, and online, really matters. Contention drives away the Spirit every time. Contention reinforces the false notion that confrontation is the way to resolve differences, but it never is. Contention is a choice. Peacemaking is a choice. You have your agency to choose contention or reconciliation. I urge you to be a peacemaker, now and always. In situations that are highly charged and filled with contention, I invite you to remember Jesus Christ. Pray to have the courage and wisdom to say or do what He would. As we follow the Prince of Peace, we will become His peacemakers.
It's almost like He knew the social dynamic would continue to get worse and worse and tempt us to adopt a spirit of contention. It doesn't matter if this killer or his family were or were not members of the Lord's church, or whether he had a falling out with it and took his name off the records. It really doesn't matter. This young man made the choices he made despite what the Lord and His church teach, not because of it. There is so much division today. Part of the reason I started this channel was to help heal that. In the Book of Mormon, Alma the Younger leaves his judgment seat to try the power of the Word of God among the people, as a way to effect some change in the direction his society was headed. I'm inspired by his example, and that's part of why I'm here doing this. I hope that by continuing to marvel at and be grateful for the beautiful truths restored to earth through modern-day apostles and prophets and additional scripture, we can bring the Lord's power into our lives and help share His light to others who need it. For now, this channel is small, but I believe in what we're doing here because it's what the Lord has invited us to do. To consecrate ourselves to the building up of His kingdom on the earth, to be an example of the believers, and to stand as witnesses of Him at all times and in all things and in all places. Hug your families today. Tell them how much you love them. Be grateful for the many ways the Lord has blessed you. Be grateful that we live in a time when we have an opportunity to make a difference for good. And may the Lord come quickly.